Well, hi, Bita. Welcome to.
Hi, Megan.
It's so good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm having all the feelings to just I see Noel over there. Just
Ooh,
dancing back at Earlham. Yeah, I feel great.
Those warm feelings of nostalgia.
Exactly. It's so nice.
So, before we get into it, I'd like to start off with a moment of silence, as is customary at Earlham.
Yes, of course.
Okay, well, again, Bita, welcome. It's so good to see you. For those of you who are new or maybe watching later on, welcome to Spilling the Tea, where we chat with Earlham alums about their life since graduating from Earlham and their industries of focus. Today we have Bita Bell. She is a graduate from the class of 2016. I'll do a quick introduction and it will be followed by a about 30-minute conversation / interview format, and then I will turn it over to the students or the other guests that we have who are joining with us. Does that sound good? Okay. Bita Bell is an international multimedia artist activist working in contemporary dance, music, and film. Born in Iran, she recently moved from New York City to Austria for her PhD in Academy of Fine Arts, Vienna. She has a BA in music composition and theater from Earlham College and an MFA in dance from Ohio State University. Some of her accomplishments include, but are not limited to, her being a creative assistant for On Borders Project, a local all-female immigrant dance community, which was selected for a TEDx talk and featured on NPR and PBS. Bita is also an award-winning short filmmaker, and she has received a certificate from the GOI Peace Foundation and UNESCO. So welcome, Bita.
Thank you for having me.
So Bita also has a website. If you are interested in seeing more of her information and more of her projects, they're actually great. I will put it in the chat as well. So definitely go and check out her works. Um, so let's just get into it. You have been busy, graduated from Earlham.
Yeah.
And it's great to see. I was so impressed with your portfolio / website. Can you take me through your creative process as an artist, particularly in filmmaking?
Sure, yeah. Since Earlham, I basically went to do an MFA in dance straight after. And uh, actually, before even Earlham, I did my 2 years of high school in Lipuchan United World College of Hong Kong. And so starting from when I was in Hong Kong, I kind of got into art making, particularly performing arts and filmmaking. And from early on, I focused on making creative work from a place of narrative, personal history, and soon, inevitably, that also became political. And then going forward at Earlham, with my degree in music, I kept kind of merging mediums together, using composition and music making as a way to also choreograph and make dance. And so there was also not a lot of venues available to me at Earlham, so I used film as a way to work on choreography and dance making. And then going forward, doing my master's, I continued a lot of the sort of thematic and aesthetic interests that I had, but specifically focused more deeply on performance and choreography, but continued collaborating with different dance artists on making films, short films. Most recently, we made a short film called Off Boats, which is derived from a story of a Syrian girl who is explaining her journey from taking a boat from Syria to Greece. And yeah, that's the most recent short film. But yeah, I'm always like trying to mix the mediums of different forms of performing arts together and keeping community.
Definitely. I actually was able to see Off in both your in-person performance and also the short film. So of those two, which ones out of the two, which one do you like more, the short filmmaking aspect or the actual in-person performance?
It's very different because the in-person performance was actually a little interactive. I had made these paper boats that I handed into the audience, and on the boats it was asking them to, if able, stand in solidarity with refugees at the end of the performance. And that had a different sort of emotional landscape, whereas the short film was specifically focusing on the idea of displacement or misplacement. And the film really focused on not so much my entire movement in terms of choreography in space, but more so the intricacies of different body parts moving and creating a dynamic with the camera that resembles this feeling of not being grounded, not belonging to one particular place. So I can't really say which one I like more, but I like both of them. They're different in different ways. Yeah.
So Off is only one of many of your creative projects, but can you tell me about your creative journey in and outside of academia?
Sure. It's quite different. When you are in academia, there are a lot of resources available to you for free, including space, including people, labor. You can just, get some buddies to like make something together and not worry about paying them. And so there's a lot of logistical difference that goes into making work in academia versus making work outside. And I have made most of my work in academia. I went crazy during my MFA. I was like, okay, I have 3 years. There's so many resources. Everyone's great. I'm just gonna make. I was like, capitalism is on. And like I made so much, like I barely took time to rest. But I just had a lot of pressure knowing that once I'm out of this program, the academic setting is gonna be very difficult to make money. And it is, it really is, but that kind of helped me to really understand my craft because I was experimenting a lot. I was making a lot. There are so many things I've made that I really don't like and I don't want to do again. And there's so many things that help me kind of define myself as an artist, if that makes sense. And then when you are making work outside of academia, there's just a lot more to consider. Logistically, but also creatively, you don't have that's kind of like the pro of making work outside of academia. You don't have like a strong I don't want to say authoritarian voice, but you kind of can do whatever you want. Like you don't have to satisfy the the academics to make work. You can just really do what you want because you are a working artist, and you have to be the only one who believes in your work, because there's a lot of criticism and feedback, which can be also productive and useful inside the academia, but outside you're kind of like, you got this, and you can like do whatever you want. There's freedom in that as well.
I really appreciate that answer, because I try to impress upon the students that I come into contact with, like, take advantage of your time here. You have so many resources, not just tangible resources, but your relationships with people that have different skills.
Exactly.
So, thank you for that. But also, after when you go about creating a project after not being in academic setting, how do you choose a topic? Because I bet sometimes that those guidelines that they provide you in school kind of help you, commit to a project. But how do you choose what to do once you don't have that formal guideline?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For like personally, I feel like I'm a person who has a lot of ideas. Like it's hard for me to actually choose what to stick with and actually choose an idea to work on and manifest into becoming alive. But so I don't really struggle with like, I don't know what to make. I'm just actually struggling with like which one do I choose, like, but I think, especially, I mean, I've always thought that, but especially now, maybe especially ever, always, you got to look at like what's needed, what is it you want to spend your precious time working on to then put out in the world for people to experience. And that always helps me decide better, because then I know what is it in it for me that I want to grow and learn from as an artist, but also what is it in for people who are going to watch it, like, what, otherwise it's just kind of waste of time. So uh, yeah, so I would say like those questions usually help me figure out how to choose,
Right.
yeah, the direction I'm heading.
I'm sorry, I'm getting off of the question.
It's okay.
You touched up on a really good point, that I guess being an artist or a creative, as well as being an activist, is all about being in the service of others. How do you preserve yourself to be able to continue in your work?
Hmm. Um, I don't actually see it that way. I don't see it as like kind of an obligation to the outside world. I think it's for me too. I'm not just doing things to be like woke or or to even make a difference necessarily. It's all part of it, but I also do it because I'm genuinely interested in our human condition and in our world, in our relationship with the world. I try to remain as genuine as I possibly can with my interests. And um, I mean, art making can be stressful. It is actually pretty stressful, especially when the resources are low, and financially, especially since pandemic, we are in a very difficult position. But it also feeds off of itself. I make something and I see how it's received, or I take time to reflect on it, and that process itself makes me want to do it again. It's kind of like an addiction, maybe, but it's hopefully a healthy addiction.
I think so.
Yeah.
For students who are starting to put together their own creative portfolios?
Any tips?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. I think I would recommend like keep looking at your own work, and constantly like evaluate, not, maybe evaluate isn't a good word, because I don't want you to get into a space where you're like, oh, this is bad, this is good, this is pretty, this is not. That's all like sort of value judgment, but actually getting into a habit of studying your own work and really finding similarities in theme, in topic, in aesthetic, in background, in mood, in whatever it is, and recognizing what is it that you are constantly doing. And then once you're able to actually see, oh, like, yeah, I'm always somehow like intrigued by nature, like nature is always present, or once you realize what that is for you, then you know that that's your element. And when you know that's your element, you're always going to be diving deeper into your own craft. Because I think it's really like, we live in a world where we are highly saturated. I mean, I feel like especially since pandemic, everything has gone online, and like you constantly receive, see, and there's so many beautiful things, from things you see on Instagram, things you see on YouTube, things you see on Netflix. We are highly oversaturated with so much that we actually might love, and it might put us in a position of like, comparison, or wanting to be something or make like something. So I think it's really good to really come back to yourself and look at your own work, and really identify your own personality, your own style, your own uniqueness in your own work.
Thank you for that answer as well, because I know there are a lot of students who may not consider themselves creatives, but are technically in the process of, I guess, career discernment, or what journey they want to embark on after they graduate from Earlham. So I think that feedback is helpful for everyone. Yeah, so thank you. What experiences at Earlham really shaped your career?
That's the question that made me most nostalgic, because I had to like go back and be like, oh yeah, that happened and that happened. A lot, a lot actually. Both the bad and the good. Like, I actually struggled a lot in my first 2 years at Earlham. I really didn't feel like I belonged. I couldn't find my creative vibe. I couldn't relate. I had a hard time, and I actually considered transferring, and I applied, and I got into schools that have a stronger art and dance program, but I stayed, and I'm so glad I did, because I had to really pave my own way. And that's life. Like, you go out of school, you go to another, especially in graduate school, and then after in real world, you're constantly paving your own way. Like, and I'm so glad I wasn't in a space where everything was just laid out in front of me, and I had to find my own groove. Also, I think everything changed in my second year when the new building opened up. I was like, this building is gorgeous, because we were in the basement of Runyon. For you new people, you don't know what we went through. Like, music rooms, like yeah, you remember, but like, so that really changed. Also, just like, opening up the possibilities. Like, all of a sudden I had access to these music rooms. I was collaborating with different music groups, and like making time. That's the other thing. We're in kind of middle of nowhere, Midwest, so it's not like we can have a nightlife. And so you really actually kind of get to zoom into what you're making, what you're doing. You can actually really focus. And as much as that was really difficult for me, coming from a very like city urban place to that, but it was also really helpful to like focus. Also, like, I don't know this here. I mean, working at ITAM was great, but I think ITAM is like also closed now. I don't know what's happening with ITAM. ITAM was the instructional technology and media room where I did most of my filmmaking, editing, experiment. And there are so many things at Earlham that can really shape your career and your interest. I mean, I also had a very like socially politically aware, conscious mind, especially coming from a place like United World College and being from Iran. And you know, we also got involved in like a lot of our student clubs, like I don't remember the acronym, but Student for Peace and Justice Pathfinder, SPSP, I think, something like that. And you know, making events like I directed the global night event where I invited so many different people to just like, you know, give them a platform to share. There's actually quite a lot you can do to experience leadership, to experiment with your interests, to have conversations, engage. Like, it's a very diverse place. Like, Earlham is a pretty diverse place. Yeah, there's a lot there to take advantage of. And trust me, I know there's a lot there to also complain about, and do it. Complaining is a good practice. Like, we progress that way. But but yeah, there's a lot to take advantage of, and I certainly did towards the end of my 4 years. Yeah.
Good. So, what were the biggest adjustments that you had to make transitioning from undergrad to your time at Ohio State?
So I don't know if you know this, but like, Earlham is pretty tiny, so you all know this, but OSU is kind of the biggest university in the country. So it was a bit of a shock. But at the same time, I was in a graduate program, and the graduate program was kind of small, and like, we all knew each other. But the biggest like first moments is not to get so overwhelmed at this like crazy institution that's like huge. I felt like I'm nobody in it. The hardest adjustment had to be, I would say, my confidence, because I went to graduate school immediately after undergrad, and I was the youngest in my program, next to people who are in their 30s, 40s, who have had 10 years of experience in New York, or they even like had their own dance companies, and they're always like, what is happening? Like, it's so like intimidated, and really like didn't believe in myself at all. And it took a lot of tears and an amazing supportive cohorts to really like help me understand, no, I have something to offer, I'm accepted, so I'm there to learn. Whereas at Earlham, I didn't feel that. I was like, yeah, like we're all here, we're all equals, you know. Like, I would say that was the hardest part in graduate school. Yeah.
So that was a great segue into the next question too. Some may think that their actions are not enough to make a change, but where do you find the confidence to become an activist?
Mm. Yeah, interesting. I don't know if actually confidence is needed. I think it can. I think sometimes when we think about activism, there's this like image of I can actually use Nadia maybe. So I danced with Pussy Riot, the Russian feminist band, last year in Vienna, and I was actually about to go on tour with them in the entire US. And we were in California rehearsing 3 straight days, 12 hours, everything's ready, music, dance, costume, video, visuals, lights, everything ready. And the first night of our performance, which was in Santa Cruz, everything shut down. This was the first week of March. And so I have been working with and in conversation with and reading about and engaging with Nadia Tolokno, who's the founder and the lead member of the Pussy Riot band. And she is like that activist person that I think a lot of the times we envision when we think about an activist, you know, a person who is loud, who's been in prison, who's in protest, who's writing books, interview, like it's like, you know, but it's not that. I think activism first and foremost starts with yourself. Constantly checking in on your biases, constantly reading up, constantly, looking at your own assumptions, your relationship with the world, constantly bettering yourself. And then second, most importantly, the relationships you're building, how you engage with people, how do you talk with them. And I think these two alone is really is kind of enough, to be honest. I don't think you necessarily need to be on the front line. uh, this is also activism. And then going from there, expanding on into looking at your community, looking at the institutions you're in, who can you join, who can you support, who can you show up with, for all of that. So I don't know. I don't think any of this really requires confidence as much as it requires a looking inward and a self-awareness, perhaps. Because it's more of a personal journey, and I think it's not really a competition, like who's a bigger activist or something like that. Yeah.
So how has activism changed? How has the landscape changed in the face of COVID-19?
Yeah, since the pandemic, I mean, a lot has changed, both in terms of activism and in terms of course, performing arts. But I think it's been truly a very magnificent time that globally there has been a pause, a little moment of, all right, like what the heck is happening, and I think it's been a great moment to look at what we are doing to our planet, what we are doing to each other, what we're doing to ourselves. And I think, I mean, especially in the US, just noticing, the streets, people are marching on the streets, and the energy that BLM has is so different than it had in 2013 and 14. And I was in the US, I was at Earlham when I was first getting, when BLM was first formed, and it was first becoming a movement, especially on social media. But looking at it now, it has evolved so much, and part of it is because of the pandemic, is because people have had time to sit down, to have to really care for themselves and one another. Of course, this doesn't unfortunately include everyone, but I do think that the global consciousness has really changed since the pandemic. And especially looking at my own generation and even the younger generation, things are going to change. Things are changing. And right now, all we're just trying to figure out is the direction we're heading. And hopefully a direction that is better to our planet, better to each other, better to ourselves.
Right. So for those of us who want to get into activism now, where could someone start?
If this is Earlham specific, I think, so I would say start by being at Earlham. There's a lot of student activism, student organizing, and that's where you can start. And be open-minded about the courses you're taking. Take a course that maybe is not your major, but it's going to help you understand the world better. It's going to help you build better relationships. And this is a liberal arts college experience. So start by getting engaged, talking to people, asking questions, and be okay with being uncomfortable. Be okay with not knowing, because that's how you learn and that's how you become comfortable. I would say start at really making yourself be present at Earlham, and then things will just come to you. You will just you will just find your own voice and find your own way and figure out in what ways you want to make a difference, because there are so many different ways. There's so many different ways, and none of them is wrong. You can do whatever it makes sense for you to do, and Earlham is a great place to start doing those, especially when you receive backlash. That's when you're like actually practicing.
Um, everyone says that their school is the best, but I really think that Earlham is an opportunity unlike any other, because you're in such an intimate, close setting with so many people, so many different types of minds.
Mm-hmm.
It benefits everyone when you really take advantage and really sit down and push against your own comfort zones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But what exciting things are coming up for you other than your PhD? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm starting PhD, but classes are going online, so I don't really know what's happening yet. But I'm excited to be in Vienna, even though it's such a difficult transition. Um, I mean, I spent my entire adulthood in the US. I was in the US from 17 till just last July, this past July, and it's hard because I'm constantly, thinking about the US and trying to transition. But I'm excited about Vienna, getting to know Vienna. There's actually quite a lot of artistic activity in Vienna, even now, despite the pandemic. Recently, there was this radical feminist performing arts festival that's called Wienwoche, and it was really cool. I got to see really awesome performances, and yeah, I'm just excited to engage, slowly learn German. Not excited about that actually. And yeah, and I think sometimes people ask me like, why did you leave the US? And there are so many reasons, but one of the reasons is also that I felt that there is a lot of pressure in the US to become something or be someone. Whereas I feel like in Vienna, I have the space to be who I want to be, become who I want to become. And in the US, it's possible, but there's just so much pressure to fight against. Meanwhile, not having healthcare. Meanwhile, there's violence. Meanwhile, like my family can visit me and there's visa issues. Meanwhile, I'm an immigrant. Meanwhile, it's just there's so much pressure. And so I think the most exciting thing that is happening already and is going to happen is just really having space to think, to reflect, to not feel so pressured. Yeah.
What exciting things are happening in performing arts right now? Like
Mhm.
landscape, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's exciting or not yet, because it's just such a big change. Like the nature of our career has changed. We cannot interact with people. Um, yeah, it's really strange. But I would say one of the best things is that you can actually be more globally connected. Like just this month, I was teaching online um, through a dance company that's based in New York, but I'm here and I'm teaching online, and people are calling in from Colorado and New Mexico and and that would not be possible if I were to just teach at the studio. It would just be anyone who's there. So there are some possibilities now of connecting and learning that maybe were not as present before. Um, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if things open up again, it's going to be exactly like before. I don't know if we're moving more towards a technological, digital space, or it's really hard to say now. I know that everyone's experimenting and making it work in whatever ways, creative ways possible. Yeah, strange times for sure.
Um, I actually think I ran over time a little bit. I got so wrapped up in the conversation, but I'm actually going to turn it over to the audience now to
Yes,
ask.
I'm so excited to hear from current students. How are you all doing?
Pretty good. I do have a question for you, Bita. So just so that you know that I always wanted to be a filmmaker, but life didn't go that route. And seeing someone from Earlham, making their own films after graduation, it's very exciting. So I just wanted to know your experience, and like the logistics behind it. Like, were you the only director? Did you have to deal with video editing or script writing? Like, did you take all the roles, upon yourself, and then, or was it like shared? Like, just if you can share your whole experience, that would be cool.
Sure, of course, Alan. Um, it depends on the project. There has been projects where I'm the editor. There has been projects where I'm the director and someone else does the editing. Um, so it really depends on the project. I can definitely tell you that I can do all of them. I can edit on Final Cut Pro. I studied music. I can sound edit and also compose music. I also have a choreographic eye and I can be a director. And it's really great to feel like I can do all of them. Again, depending on the project, I may be more comfortable choosing one over the other. In terms of finding labor and collaborators, the couple of films I made was in graduate school, and I had colleagues who were specifically also focusing on dance filmmaking, and so that kind of came pretty naturally. In the outside world, it's kind of like it's kind of like dating. You know how you like you like go up to someone to like date them, but instead of dating them for like romantic purposes, you're dating them for artistic purposes. So you kind of ask them about their work, what they're interested in, how they work, their process. You get their info, you look at what they make, and you see if you like it, and if you have a good personality match to collaborate and work together. So yeah, it's kind of like dating.
That sounds
um,
awesome.
yeah, I would say at Earlham, I learned most of my editing with Noel and the item guys, and I watched a lot of films, like a lot of films. I would always go to library and check out films, also films that I had no interest in, but I would just like watch them and just like kind of fill in my memory with imagery and cinematic like ideas or whatever. So at Earlham, it's possible. It's definitely possible to do it. Yeah,
Thanks for that.
sure.
Hey, Beta, I have a question also.
Hi. Yeah.
Um, do you think it's more of an advantage or disadvantage with like all the learning and teaching having to be like online due to COVID?
Do I think if it's an advantage or disadvantage to be learning online?
Like having the learning and teaching, just the whole process of, not face to face stuff.
Yeah. I don't think I can say if it's an advantage or disadvantage. It's different, and it's different in for example, I think when you are in person, an energy kind of gets back to you. The energy gets bounced around between different students, between the faculty, and there's a sense of like you get feed off of it. But that doesn't happen in online. Like it's not even happening now. Like it feels exhausting much sooner. No offense, I'm just saying that's just like the way that it works virtually. um, I think there can be advantages, like the way you share information, the way you interact, it's changing. And I've never experienced it like you are experiencing it now, and so I can't fully speak to the experience. I can only talk about the few online classes I have taken or I have taught myself, but those are really short and they kind of drop in. It's not like a semester long class. So I hesitate to speak about that experience. I really don't know how it feels, and maybe you can tell me how it's feeling now. But I think they can be advantages for sure. But how's it been for you guys? Like, what's going on now?
Honestly, for me, I'm more of a hands-on, face-to-face type of person. So I will say it's been a disadvantage for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've always been, I don't know, I've always been the last person to read my email or, you know, stuff like that. And nowadays that has to be the first thing you check when you wake up. So I would say it has been a disadvantage for me. It's kind of hard. So I'm, I'm glad to be going back to campus October 3rd. So.
Okay, good. Are you finding ways to balance that, the digital interaction with in-person interaction, even if it's just yourself? Like, are you doing something that is not screen oriented? You know, maybe like picking up a craft or just like doing movement or something that is away from this screen interaction?
Honestly, the only thing I do that's away from my computer is lifting weights or going to play basketball. So literally everything is virtual and I have to do it online. So that is hard for me.
Yeah, I would maybe suggest like, yeah, picking up new hobbies that really get your mind off of this screen interaction, and also like finding different ways to even have the screen interaction. So if you're calling up a person, maybe you're not just like sitting and like talking with them like that. Maybe you put your phone down and like cook something together at the same time, you know. I know it's hard and it truly sucks. I cannot imagine being in college like that. Like, best part of college was hanging out with people, and I'm really sorry, it's really shitty. But I really just hope that it will also be over soon. And it will. It's just a matter of time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey Bita, so I had a question as well. I know you're interested in music composition and theater, but were you interested in that before you came to Earlham, or did Earlham sort of influence you to like go into that?
Long story short, I actually wanted to study dance. I knew that, and I started theater as a sort of plan B, and I was like, oh, it's still performance and movement, you know.
Right.
I really disliked the theater department. It was not a good place for me, and for actually quite a few people. And so I actually went to the New York Arts program in the first semester of my second year. So I only spent 1 year at Earlham, and I was like, I need to go, I need a break. And I went to New York, and my advisor in that program was Peter Zumo, who is a musician and who has been working in New York for decades and has collaborated with so many dance artists. And in conversation with him, he told me, hey, like, why don't you consider studying music? You know, you want to do dance, music is a good way to dance. And I was like, I don't know anything about like music, you know. I mean, I had studied piano and I was like 10 for a few months. I had an abusive teacher in Iran, and I was like, this sucks, I'm not doing this. And I came back to Earlham and I went to the music department. I was like, so I want to be a major. What do I need to do? And then back then Bill was there, and Bill was like, can you read music? I was like, no. Can you play anything? I was like, no. Can you sing? I was like, no. And then he's like, okay, so how about composition? I was like, yeah, I like making things. And then that's how it all came about. But it was intense. I learned how to play the piano and read music and write like Western music notation in 2 freaking years, and wrote for violin, cello, flute, piano as my like senior thesis in 2 years. Yeah, I that's why I feel like I aged during that 2 years. but it happens. And I mean, the music department, I love them. They're cool. They're really cool. Like, they really let me do my thing, and they were really supportive. They were really supportive of me. Yeah, and I also got into electronic music a lot, and after I graduated, I made mostly electronic music on Ableton.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Bita. I had a question. You talked about a little bit about moving from the United States or away from the United States and the change in sort of social expectations and stuff like that. But how has your travel and international experience throughout the entire world kind of impacted your work and how you view things and do things like that?
Oof, that's a heavy question. A lot. I mean, I left Iran when I was 15, and this is my 10th year living abroad. You can email me and we'll have a conversation about this if you're interested. It's a pretty heavy question. Yeah, I mean, the best thing that has come from all of these travels is really the relationships I've built with people who are from all walks of life with so many different backgrounds, and it has made me become a person. I'm not just hanging out with dancers. I'm hanging out with all kinds of people. I mean, one of my best friends is like, studying law. Like, it's like, it has made me have a very diverse approach to like everything, from my friendships to like what I read, what I watch, like, and it has also been a very open-minding experience, because I've been exposed to things that I wouldn't have been able to see or learn about if I hadn't moved from one place to another all the time. I'm sure there's a lot more to this question than what I'm offering now, so I'll write my email and you can email me later.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. It's kind of maybe going off of that a little bit. So you've clearly accomplished a lot and it seems to be a very short amount of time. How do you like find the motivation and motivate yourself to continue to do these things and continue to get up every day and not want to just relax all day and not do anything, but like to motivate yourself to just continue to, okay, I've accomplished one thing, but that's not enough. I want to go to the next. I want to continue to accomplish more.
Yeah, sometimes I don't see it as like getting to something. Sometimes I still see it as just like practicing and living life like more fully and more densely. Like after a performance, there's always that feeling of like, oh, okay, like, okay, we did this project, it's over now, like, but it never feels like I just got to A, now I need to go get to B, or like I just caught this star, now I'm gonna get another star. Like it doesn't feel like that. And it's, yeah, what keeps me motivated, I don't know. I mean, I have anxiety, so that keeps me going. It's like I can't, if I just sit down for too long, I don't feel useful. And what keeps me motivated is to feel like I can do things for myself, for the people around me, for the world. Like, and part of that is anxiety, which is maybe not a good place to start, but. Yeah, sure. Anything else?
Hi, Bita. I'm a music major. I've heard a lot about you from Forest. It's really nice to see you for the first time. I was wondering if you have any advice for getting involved with activist artist groups such as Pussy Riot, like after graduation, or like what good next steps would be to start on that path.
What are you doing now in the music department? What are your interests?
My final senior project is a hardcore protest punk album.
Fuck yes.
So yeah. And so that's kind of just the way I'm going.
Cool. Just email me and I'll send you information and hook you up. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Bita. I have a question.
Yeah. Hi.
So I agree with getting involved with Earlham is a great way to start out, but Earlham can offer a lot. Was there any like event that you attended while being here that significantly like impacted you?
I lost the last part of your question. Sorry.
Was there any event that you attended at Earlham that significantly impacted your career?
I just actually made a post about this because I was like looking back at like what happened in those 4 years. Rebel Diaz came to Earlham, and Rebel Diaz is a political hip hop duo from the Bronx in Chicago, and they had a performance at Earlham, and then they had a workshop, and that was actually also a very like big kind of opening to the sort of activism path that I went on, because we were like reading pedagogy of the oppressed, and so that was like one of the most like amazing events. And in general, I mean, we had amazing convocations and talks at my roommate. It's okay. And who else came? Oh, Chimamanda Ngozi came for her book Americana. That was awesome. The writer of the new Jim Crow law, whose name is escaping my mind right now, she came. That was awesome. I'm sorry, but like big shout out to James Logan. Like wherever he's at, that's an event on its own in which you can participate in. I actually worked at the events office with Lynn Knight, so I was basically going to all the events.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Was Rebel Diaz climbing poetry?
Rebel Diaz, they rap.
I think there's a similar group called Climbing Poetry. Anyway, who's next?
It rings a bell when you say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go for it.
If you were to offer one piece of advice for a graduating senior at Earlham, what would that advice be?
What are you majoring in?
I'm majoring in global management.
Okay. We need you. Manage us. What would that piece of advice be? It's very broad. Can you help me out? Like, what specifically are you thinking about?
I was thinking more of going forward, like post-graduation, I guess. So either looking for a job or going into grad school.
Both are okay. It really depends where you see yourself at now. I mean, I left towards my senior year, I applied for the Master's of Fine Arts in Dance at the Ohio State University, because I was like, I need to study dance. Like, I know I'm dancing and making work, but I need to study it. I want to like go to the studio, have training, read, write. Like, I want that. I also didn't think I'd get in, to be honest. So I was like, okay, that's what I want. That's what I need. But like after my graduate school, I was actually more interested to be a freelance artist, but that was really hard in terms of immigration. And so PhD came as a career choice, but also as a way for me to be able to immigrate to Vienna. So the PhD itself wasn't necessarily the first career choice. Like, it gives me space and time to do my research and also work as a freelance artist. But yeah, I would say think about, what is it you want to do? Do you want to be working 40 hours a week? Do you want to be working 20 hours a week? which company do you want to be working with, like how, because it's really like whatever you decide to do, that's the time you have in this life. And so really like think about what is it you really want, even if it's so difficult and impossible and people tell you what is a master's in dance, blah 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 blah, just do it, like just like screw it, do it. So I can't really tell you like go to graduate school or go work, but you really have to think about what is it that you really want to do. Both can be amazing, really. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, I hope it's helpful.
Hi, Bita. I had a question. I am also a senior music major, and I'm trying to, I'm trying to realize a fantasy of leaving the United States, after a lifetime of being stuck here. So I wanted, like, you mentioned that you felt like, going to school in Vienna was making, or like, you felt like, more supported to, I guess, pursue like an academic path that like was more, you know, personal to you. And so I wondered if you had any like guidance along those lines about like maybe your search for like graduate schools and like what sorts of places you looked at and like what sort of artistic communities you were interested in.
I was actually thinking about leaving the US after my bachelor's as well at Earlham, and I had this extensive research about dance schools in Europe, also including some dance schools in Latin America and this dance school in Jamaica. I was like, why not? And I had that whole research done, and I applied to OSU because it was in Columbus. It was right close to us. I was like, I can go audition and like really see how it feels. And then I got in, and then it's 3 years I spent there. So it kind of happened like that, actually. And then after OSU, I actually came to Vienna to participate in a dance festival, and then I really enjoyed the city and decided to move to Vienna, and then looked for schools. So something came after the other, kind of. In terms of research, if you're thinking about studying music, Vienna is great to be. I mean, the only thing there is in Vienna is music, like and potatoes. There's like that's the only thing they're good in. But you can actually email me, and I can help you in that research, and send you some links. Also, France is a pretty good space for that. Also, Germany, also Sweden. I can definitely help you. A bunch of links.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Well, we are at time. It is 1 p.m. now.
Yeah.
This Zoom session has been really great.
It's so nice to just think of Earlham and talk with current students. It's really awesome, and I'm really proud of you all. Like being in college in these times, it's I can't imagine. Yeah, hang in there, everyone.
Best of luck with your journeys and your PhD.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for speaking with us, Bita.
Thank you for choosing me to talk.
Thank you all for joining us for this session of Spilling the Tea. Follow the Center for Global and Career Education on Instagram and Facebook for more that are to come in fall 2 and after. All right, Caitlin, do you have anything else?